Hello, and welcome to Season 3 of the Choose UCalgary podcast, the University of Calgary's prospective student podcast. I'm your host, Virginia Harvey, and I'm a student recruitment assistant working with UCalgary's student recruitment team on a 4-month co-op work term. In today's episode, I'm sitting down with Jolene Maude, the University of Calgary's assistant registrar for undergraduate admissions. Thank you for being here today, Jolene.
My pleasure.
To start off, could you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and your role at the University of Calgary?
Sure. So, like you said, I'm the Assistant Registrar of Undergrad Admissions here at UCalgary. So, essentially, what that means is that I oversee all of the processes for undergrad admissions, and I work with a wonderful group of people who are working really hard behind the scenes to get our applicants admitted and get those offers out.
Today, I wanted to get some answers about questions that students might have about admissions to the University of Calgary. So let's start with, how many applications does the U of C typically get per year?
Sure, a lot. So I think this last year for the fall of 2020, we received over 20,000 individual applicants. So actually that equals closer to 40,000 applications.
Wow. And of those applications, what's the most popular program that students typically apply to?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know that there's actually like a most popular program. I think at the University of Calgary, we have some programs that are really well known. So a couple that come to mind are the Schulich School of Engineering programs, our Haskayne School of Business, and all of our business programs. And then our nursing program is also really well known. It has a lot of different ways to get into it as well.
Absolutely. So, contrary to those well-known programs, are there any specific programs that you wish students knew a little bit more about?
Another good question. I don't know that there's any one program that I would like students to know more about. I think that the bigger thing is, I think it would be awesome if students had a better understanding of how much opportunity they have at the university to explore different areas of interest and really create an educational experience that they're excited about and that they're really interested in. So when I think about all of the different majors that we have in the Faculty of Arts and in the Faculty of Science, there's so many cool ways for our students to, pick a major program, but then combine different interests and really learn about the topics that they're most excited about. So there's a ton of really cool ways for our students to create a university degree and a university education in a way that gets them really excited and gets them interested in different things and passionate about different areas of learning.
That sounds great. In terms of the actual application process, is it the same for all students, or are there any differences depending on where they're from?
Sure. The application process is pretty similar for all of our students, no matter who you are or where you're coming from. Everybody needs to fill out the online application. So if you're coming in from Alberta, you'll start your application process at Apply Alberta. But everybody else, so all of our students that are applying from outside of Alberta, will just jump into the University of Calgary application. And then the process is very similar for everybody. You submit your online application, you pay your application fee, and then after you do that, you'll have access to your online student center. So you'll be told which documents you need to submit and by when, and then you sit and wait to hear from us. So pretty similar for everybody.
Is the application fee the same for everyone as well?
Good question. So there are two different application fees, and really the fee is dependent on where you studied. So students who are studying within Canada will pay the domestic application fee of $125, and then students who are studying outside of Canada will pay the international application fee of $145.
Have you followed us on social media? Check out our channels for prospective students at choose.ucalgary on Instagram and University of Calgary Future Students on Facebook. So when you're looking at the applications, are there any common mistakes that you see?
So I think there's a couple of things. A lot of times, and especially right now or kind of leading up to the end of first semester, we'll often have students call in and say, oh my goodness, I forgot to add this institution to my application. What do I do? And the good news is that after you apply, you can actually go in and update and make changes to your application right up until the application deadline of March 1st. So that's something that I think is a good piece of information for everybody to be aware of. A lot of times students won't choose a second choice on their application, and we always suggest that students do choose a second choice. And then I think the other piece that we see a little bit has more to do with document submission. So this doesn't pertain too much to our Alberta listeners because we receive documents on their behalf. But for anybody studying outside of Alberta, you will be responsible for sending in your documents. And when we say that we're looking for an unofficial transcript, what we're looking for is a scanned or a photocopy of your actual transcript. Sometimes we'll see documents that are like a screenshot of your student portal, and that's not something that we're able to use for admission, so we really do need that unofficial transcript.
I think that will be really helpful for students, and you sort of led into my next question. How many programs can students apply for with their application?
Yeah, so on the application, you'll have the opportunity to apply for a first choice program and a second choice program.
So why did you mention they should put a second choice, and does that affect their consideration for their first choice program?
So students should include the second choice on their application, like I mentioned, because it really is that second opportunity to be evaluated. And adding the second choice does not negatively impact consideration for your first choice program. The way that we evaluate students is we look at students for their first choice and their second choice throughout the evaluation process. So I'm going to give an example if that would be helpful. So if you applied last week because you're super excited to come to the U of C and you've selected a first choice and a second choice, when we get to giving out offers later on this semester, we're going to evaluate you for your first choice program first. If you're admissible to your first choice, amazing, you're in, we're super excited, that's awesome. If you're not admissible to your first choice, then we're going to move on and look at you for your second choice. So, it's that second chance to be evaluated for admission.
So say you're admitted to your second choice program, but once your final grades come in, it turns out you actually can be admitted to your first choice. What happens then?
You bet. So once we get new grades after the fall semester, we're going to go ahead and look at you for your first choice again. So even if you have an offer to your second choice already, there is still potential for you to be evaluated and looked at for your first choice once we get new grades.
Okay, perfect. With the applications, how are they actually assessed, and are they only assessed once?
So for high school, most of our process is automated. So it runs really regularly, and students should get an offer pretty quickly after we receive documents. And applications are assessed multiple times throughout the cycle. So typically I consider the cycle of October to about July, and students will continue to kind of be looked at regularly, sort of depending on what education you're actively engaged in and where you are in your education for this year.
When are offers for applications actually going out?
We should be starting to make offers of admission in mid-November.
Very exciting. And what's the rest of the timeline for offers?
We'll start sending out offers in November, and then they will continue until we're finished evaluating students. So the vast majority of our offers will go out after we have fall semester grades. So the majority of our students that we're admitting will be looked at on what we call standard admission, which is a combination of grade 11 and grade 12 grades. So we're mostly waiting for that first semester of grade 12 to be finished before we can send those out.
Okay. And finally, what advice do you have for students wanting to apply to the University of Calgary?
Do it. The biggest piece of advice is to apply early, get your application in now if you can. Keep an eye on your student center. That's where we will communicate with you about everything that has to do with your application. If we need additional information all of the important dates and deadlines are in there. And then just sit back and relax and wait for us to get to work.
Awesome. Well, that wraps up my questions. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your insights with prospective students of the University of Calgary.
You bet, my pleasure.
That concludes today's episode of the Choose UCalgary podcast. If you'd like to learn more about the University of Calgary, have any further questions about admissions, or want to start your application today, follow the links in the episode description. Thanks for listening and have a great day.